Hi, I'm Bridget. Welcome to my kitchen where I help busy families eat well with wholesome and delicious recipes. I always say, why buy granola when you can make healthy granola at home for half the cost? Homemade granola is so easy to make and can be adapted to whatever you have in your cupboard. Today I'll share 2 granola recipes. A classic oaty granola filled with nuts and seeds, and a rich tasting, but still healthy, peanut butter granola. We'll start with the classic granola recipe. We'll measure 3 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats. These are large flake rolled oats. I usually double this recipe actually and make a really big batch. So to our 3 cups of rolled oats, we're going to add half a cup of ground flax and half a cup of wheat germ. Now, if you want to make this gluten-free, you can replace the wheat germ with hemp seeds or chia or a little more flax, or you could just leave it out altogether. We're also going to add half a cup of sesame seeds, half a cup of sunflower seeds, a quarter of a cup of pumpkin seeds, and half a cup of almonds. Now, all of the nuts and seeds that I've added are raw. They haven't been cooked yet, so they'll toast up nicely in the hour that it'll take us to cook this granola. Now, we're just going to mix this up. I will add half a cup of dried fruit. I'm going to add dried cranberries, but you could add raisins or cherries or apricots or dates, whatever your favorite dried fruit is. But I'm going to wait till the very end before I add the fruit, because it will get hard and sort of dried out if it's in the oven that long. Now for the wet ingredients, we're going to add 3 tablespoons of oil. You could use olive oil or canola oil. I'm using grapeseed oil, and I'm measuring the oil first because next I'm going to add molasses, a quarter of a cup of molasses. And if you measure molasses into an oil-coated measuring cup, it comes out a lot more easily. And then I'm going to add a quarter of a cup of water. Now, the water actually replaces some of the oil in this recipe, so it's not as high in fat as a traditional granola is. Okay, so we've got our sweet and our oil and water. And now I'm going to add, and this is optional, but I'm adding half a teaspoon of ground ginger and half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of vanilla. And again, vanilla is optional, but I'm just adding half a teaspoon. And we'll mix those together. And then we'll just pour it right into the middle of our dry mixture and toss it around until everything is well coated. If you feel like it's not mixing in well enough, you just need to give it a little bit of time, because there really is enough moisture in here to coat each and every one of those flakes of oats. You really should use an old-fashioned or large flake rolled oats for these. If you have quick oats, they will still work, but instant oats just would go sort of gluey and mushy. So sticking with the largest oats you can find is best. Now that everything is well combined, it's ready to go in the oven. So I have lined a baking sheet with parchment paper. So we're just going to spread it out in a single layer, or as as evenly as possible. We're going to cook it in a slow oven, and by a slow oven, that means 300 degrees, and we'll cook it for 45 minutes to an hour. And every 15 minutes or so, I'm just going to toss it to make sure the edges don't get too browned. So we'll spread it right to the edges. This is a nice big baking sheet. You could spread it over 2 cookie sheets if you want, especially if you make a double batch. That's what I would normally do. Spread it out on 2 baking sheets. Okay, so into the oven it goes, 300 degrees. We'll stir it every 15 minutes and it'll be in the oven for about an hour. Now that our classic oaty granola is in the oven, we'll get started on the peanut butter granola. This peanut butter granola has a lovely richness thanks to the peanut butter, which also adds a good amount of protein. And it replaces a lot of the fat that you would normally find in a traditional granola recipe. Again, we'll start with 3 cups of rolled oats, large flake, old-fashioned rolled oats. And as with the other granola recipe, I usually double the recipe when I'm making this for my family, because it stores well, and actually this granola can be frozen. All right, 3 cups of old-fashioned rolled oats, and we've got 1/2 cup of large flake shredded coconut, and I always use unsweetened. And then we have 1/4 cup of ground flax, and 1/4 cup of raw pumpkin seeds, 1/2 cup of raw sunflower seeds. We'll just stir that up a little bit. And then for the liquid ingredients, we're going to combine 1/3 cup, or actually a little more than 1/3 cup, of a nice runny natural peanut butter. This is 6 tablespoons, so a heaping 1/3 cup. I've chosen smooth peanut butter, but you could use a crunchy peanut butter. But the natural runny peanut butter is best. To our peanut butter, I'm going to add just 2 tablespoons of oil. As I said, the peanut butter does replace a lot of the oil that would normally be in this recipe. And then I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of molasses, measuring again after the oil so it slides out of the measuring spoon easily. And I'm also going to add 2 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. So in this recipe, the sweet gets a little more complex with the combination of molasses and maple syrup. But still only 1/4 cup of sweet. And I've got 2 tablespoons of water. And then I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla. Just mix that gently. It'll take just a little bit of stirring to combine the peanut butter and the oil with the water, but it will all come together. This recipe has dried fruit in it as well. I always add raisins, but again, you could choose whatever kind of dried fruit you like, and it's just 1/2 cup. But I will add it at the very end after the granola has finished baking. And it's the same drill. Once the wet ingredients are well combined, we will pour them into the dry ingredients. This mixture smells delicious because of that peanut butter. And we'll just keep stirring until everything is nicely coated. If you feel like it's not coming together well enough, you can add up to a tablespoon extra of water. But if you just give it a little bit of time, it should all come together. This granola cooks in a slow oven also, 300 degrees, for the better part of an hour, and we will stir it every 15 minutes as well. And really the stirring is just to help it cook evenly. I want to get every last bit of peanut butter from this measuring cup into the granola mixture. There we go. There, it is well combined and ready to go on a cookie sheet to bake. I've lined a sided baking sheet with parchment paper. And we'll just spread this as evenly as possible onto the cookie sheet. There we go. Ready to go in the oven. Our granola has been baking for 15 minutes, so I'm just going to give it a little stir. And already it's cooking nicely. Drying out a lot. I can smell the ginger, which is lovely. So once it's been stirred, again, try to spread it as evenly as possible. And back in the oven it goes for another 15 minutes. Our peanut butter granola has been in for about 15 minutes, so we're ready to give it a little stir. This is a smaller cookie sheet, of course, than the other one. So this one will take a little bit longer to cook than the classic granola that we started with. There we go, back in the oven. Our granola is ready, and you'll know that it's cooked enough when it feels dry and a little bit crumbly. You don't want it to get too dark on the edges, but you don't want any of the clumps of granola to still feel like there's moisture in them. So this is cooked just perfectly. I'm going to add the dried fruit now. I'm adding dried cranberries, 1/2 cup, to the classic granola recipe. And I'm adding dried raisins to the peanut butter granola recipe. And I'm just going to mix those in. I like to store my granola in a jar in the cupboard, but you can freeze it also. It'll last in the cupboard for about 3 weeks. And this granola, both granola recipes are delicious, sprinkled over yogurt or cereal. You can even use them as a salad topper, and they make wonderful hostess gifts. I hope these recipes become family favorites for you too. Thanks for watching.